Good morning, all. My name is Chiara Lawrence, and my paper is Non-Motorized Transport Systems, Current and Emerging Themes Globally, a Bibliometric Review. My co-authors are Prof. Trinos Gumbo and Dr. Zakira Jeeva. The world's urban population in 2014 was 54% and is expected to increase to 66% by the year 2050, which will result in an amplified demand in motorized transportation due to urbanization expanding cities, which would require smart growth. The amount of automobiles will then be expected to rise between 2.2 to 2.6 times around the world between 2040 to 2050. This will create congestion and air pollution. Cities around the world are trying to find ways in which they can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and human-induced climate change that leads to extensive degradation and loss. Policy around the mitigation of climate change needs to take the forefront in planning projects and policies. A shift from motorized transportation to sustainable mobility needs to occur. Subsequently, non-motorized transport (NMT) is promoted since it is transport that represents walking, cycling, and many other options that are not motorized would overcome the shortcoming of motorized transportation. Hence, there is a renewed interest in aspects that would improve safety, accessibility, infrastructure, and sustainability for NMT. A bibliometric analysis methodology was adopted. The data was imported to the VOS viewer system. Data for both non-motorized with a Z and non-motorized with an S from the Web of Science between 1996 to 2022 were then combined and then imported to VOS viewer for analysis. Data was then analyzed in terms of keywords, authors, countries, organizations, date of publications, and citations. Data for NMT and its relationship with accessibility, safety, infrastructure, and sustainability was then analyzed in terms of keywords for each theme's relationship with NMT to create network maps respectively. Data analysis took place using either a minimum number of 2 documents and 0 citations or minimum number of 4 occurrences, which can be seen on your screens right now. Results and discussion. Of the total 165 articles, only 57 keywords met the threshold. The top 5 co-occurrences were NMT with a Z, walking, transport, built environment, and transportation. NMT Publication Authors. As we can see on the left, it's based on the number of documents, and on the right, it's based on the number of citations. We can see that these top 5 authors do not correlate with documents and citations, which means that the number of citations depends on the quality of the document and not the quantity. The NMT Publication Countries, we can see these correlate with USA dominating both number of documents and number of citations. The only difference would be Brazil and the Netherlands. NMT Publication Organizations, we do not see any government entities, we do not see any private institutions or organizations. All we see are higher education institutions. NMT Citations and Publications. The two graphs, Graph 1 non-motorized with a Z and Graph 2 non-motorized with an S, both indicate article publications and citations between 1996 to 2022 that are centered around NMTs. In Graph 2 articles began in 1999, whereas Graph 1 articles were being published during 1996. Between 1996 and 2010, there were a total of 0 to 5 articles being published each year. From the year 2011, a steady rise in the number of articles being published can be noted, though they remain low. The year 2010 and 2021 saw the highest number of combined publications and citations respectively. The year 2011, Graph 2, saw a spike in the number of citations, although citations in both graphs seem to increase based on the number of articles published the previous year. The combined number of articles and citations, Graph 1 and Graph 2, published per year have never exceeded 21 and 650 respectively. NMT and Accessibility. Of the total 31 articles, only 12 keywords met the threshold. These keywords were accessibility, land use, non-motorized transport, walking, and the built environment. A study in Catania, Italy indicates that land use and built environment both play a major role in accessibility and NMT through effective land use planning, minimizing motorized transport dependency, and increasing NMT use. This leads to the reduction of transport energy dependence and climate change. The importance of walking can be noted through a study conducted in accessibility of NMT to retail activities in Zaragoza, Spain. It found that walking to retail stores was dependent on distance traveled and age of user. Users who were older than 65 years old were less likely to walk as much as users who were younger than 65 years old, meaning that walking is one of the major themes researched under accessibility and NMT due to it possibly excluding certain users. NMT and Safety. Of the total 31 articles, only 10 keywords met the threshold. These were non-motorized transport with a Z, transportation, safety, physical activity, and built environment. A study undertaken in China analyzing road safety, physical activity, and built environment found that traffic safety may affect the number of people willing to use NMT due to the number of new drivers in Chinese cities. Fear of crime also affects the number of people willing to participate in physical activity, as crime rates have increased in China since the last 3 decades due to market reform. The study suggests that the concept of 1T represents a network of personal bonds that shapes all fragments of life. 1T is related to safety and can be applied to remedy the situation between the built environment, safety, and physical activity. NMT and Infrastructure. Of the 54 articles, there were only 20 keywords. These were walking, non-motorized with a Z, land use, city, and transportation. A case study of 2 Indian cities, Rajkot and Vizag, looking at the relationship of NMT infrastructure and NMT use, concluded that the improvement in NMT infrastructure leads to an increased use of NMT walking and cycling due to the reduction of risk to users. A study conducted in Minneapolis, United States of America, further reiterates that pedestrian traffic is linked to transportation infrastructure, land use, and neighborhood characteristics. Of the total 32 articles of NMT and Sustainability, there were only 14 keywords that met the threshold. The top 5 co-occurring keywords were non-motorized with a Z, cities, walking, built environment, sustainability. A case study looking at Italian cities during COVID-19 pandemic and their sustainable mobility was analyzed. The study revealed that the cities temporarily reallocated road space in favor of sustainable mobility, walking and cycling in alignment with social distancing and healthy active lifestyles. These temporary measures proved successful and can be used to implement new measures in line with it. This promotes sustainable mobility and the rethinking of how urban spaces are planned. Policy implications. Given the results and discussion, the amount of research carried out pertaining to NMT is quite scarce. The organizations behind the highest documents and citations suggest that the top 5 articles are from higher education institutions. This needs to change with articles that should be funded by governments instead to boost the number of publications and assist in implementation policies to support NMT. Each emergent theme is supported by case studies which have been undertaken in cities around the world, which means that there is enough evidence to implement policies which promote NMT. More policy around NMT assisting the overall sustainability of cities needs to be implemented, as the relationship between NMT and sustainability proposals main themes primarily look at the citywide level. More studies focused on NMT should be carried out. There's also a need for papers around the relationship between NMT and accessibility, safety, infrastructure, and sustainability. Future papers need to analyze the deeper relationship of NMT to emergent themes and how governments can capitalize on the efficient implementation of NMT. To conclude, the emergent themes based on the highest number of occurrences in NMT were non-motorized transport, walking, transportation, built environment, transportation, which suggests that all papers that look at NMT as a form of transport but also related to mode choice and in terms of its relationship to human-made environment. More studies need to be carried out looking at NMT.